all of it, independent Senator Angus King from Maine, a member of the Senate Intelligence Committee. Thank you for joining us here on set, Senator. So let's start off with the big question here. Should there be a select independent investigation here, or should it be handled in the Intel Committee?
Well, there is a select committee already working. It's called the Senate Committee, the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence.
Some Democrats, though, have said there should be something outside that purview.
Well, I don't really fully understand that, because we've got a committee set up to do this. It works with the intelligence community continuously. We've been looking at the Russian hacking issue for some time.
Right.
We've already begun the work of the investigation, identified documents talking about identifying witnesses, identifying staff. So we're off and running on this, and it's our committee that has worked with the intelligence community on an ongoing basis. So I'm not sure why you would want to start over. You might have a different cast of senators, but it's already a bipartisan committee, and it's a strong committee.
And none of the news that has come out this morning has caused you to rethink that perspective or rethink that stance? Well,
the question is, are we going to have a thorough investigation of this whole issue, including contacts between the Trump campaign and the Russians? And the answer is yes. Our committee is already, that's part of our agreed upon format of following through on the investigation. So I think we're already on our way.
So we will see if the president gets asked about this at the news conference today. But the president, the vice president, members of the White House have consistently denied that there has been any interaction during the campaign between staffers of the Trump team and folks in Moscow. Obviously, we've got this report out from the New York Times.
They also consistently, Mr. Flynn consistently denied he talked about sanctions too. Now we know that wasn't true.
Do you believe the president when he says no contact?
Well, I'm gonna wait and see what the facts show. I got to say, this White House doesn't have a lot of credibility right now. I mean, they knew about the Flynn contact and the discussion of sanctions for 2.5 weeks. They let the vice president verified Flynn. Flynn kept saying no. Kellyanne Conway endorsed, in effect, endorsed Flynn an hour or so before he resigned. So I just think we've got to slow down, take a deep breath, and get to the facts.
When you talk about the credibility issue that you describe now at the White House, I know you know Vice President Pence. He's been on the Hill quite a bit doing outreach to folks in Congress. He wasn't told about these inconsistencies with Mike Flynn until he read about it in media reports this past Thursday, 2 weeks after the president knew. NBC News was the first to report that. Is that a concern for you? What does that say to you about what's happening inside the West Wing?
It's absolutely a concern. If the White House counsel knew it, the White House knew it for 2.5 weeks. Vice President Pence had made those statements sort of backing up Flynn, and nobody told him. That's not an efficient, well-connected organization, and it indicates why we need to do this investigation. And one of the first people we need to talk to is Mr. Flynn, General Flynn, not only about what he said and did with the Russian ambassador after the election, but what were his contacts with the Russians before the election. He was a commentator on Russian television. He was at a banquet sitting next to Putin just about a year ago. So that we need to understand that.
On that topic, Tom Friedman is writing today that the biggest national security issue facing the United States, the biggest one, is the question of what is happening between Donald Trump and the Russians, if we can pull that up. Do you agree with that assessment? Is that the #1 national security issue right now for Americans?
Well, I don't know if you have to say #1, because we got Cuban missiles, and we've got Russians off the coast of Delaware. Not Cuban missiles. Cuban missiles, that's a long time ago.
I was going to say that was
North Korea missiles.
From a while ago.
North
the
Korea
deployment of the missile launch on Saturday night is what I've assumed you're talking about.
But yeah, it's a very serious issue. And was the national security, I mean, I think one of the things that sort of got glossed over was one of the reasons they reported this information about Flynn was he was at risk of being blackmailed. If you have a national security advisor to the President of the United States that is at risk of being blackmailed by another country, holy smoke, how much more serious does it get?
Congressman Steve King alluded to today, and we've seen the administration allude to this, that the leaks are actually the issue. They're very fired up. You saw the president tweeting this morning, very concerned about leaks coming from what he says, the NSA, the FBI, calling it un-American.
Listen, I'm concerned about the leaks too. That's a legitimate issue, but that shouldn't be used as a smokescreen to obscure the more serious substantive concerns. The leaks should be investigated. Yes, indeed. Although in this case, remember, this material, a lot of it was in the intelligence community. It was also in the Department of Justice. It was also in the White House. And this White House hasn't exactly been hermetically sealed when it comes to leaks.
So you think the leaks could be coming from inside the House?
Of course. I mean, there are lots of different places. Like I said, this material about General Flynn was in the White House for 2.5 weeks. Right. Before the resignation took place. So, yes, the leaks are an issue, but I don't like to see that used as oh, it's the leaks, that's the real issue. That's nonsense. The real issue is what the Russians were doing in our election process and whether there were connections with the campaign. I hate to see it go there, but we got to follow the facts.
Senator King, I know I got to let you go. Are you going to be involved in these discussions Senate Democrats are having later on this morning?
Yes, I will.
And what do you think will come out of that?
I have no idea. It's a political it's a political party. It'll be a wide-ranging discussion. I'm inclined to think at the end they're going to say, look, we've got a committee set up. We've got good people on it. Let's let that process play itself out.
I can guarantee we will be checking with you later this afternoon. Senator King, thank you much. I appreciate you joining us here on set. We have a lot coming up after the